For 1,000,000 years, the galaxy had forgotten the name of humanity. They had vanished so long ago that even the oldest stars in the Galactic Council's archives only mentioned them as myths. Ghosts of the Dark Age, the Destroyers, the Dreamers. Some said they had burned themselves out. Others said they had fled into the void beyond the galactic rim. None ever thought they would return. But then, the signal came. It started as a faint echo near the Perseus arm, a whisper of ancient code pulsing through the void in a rhythm that no one had heard for eons. 3 long pulses, 2 short, 1 long again. It was an old Terran distress pattern, 1,000,000 years old. At first, no one believed it. On the central world of the Council, the blue-skinned delegates of the Thalcor laughed. "Impossible," they said, their voices vibrating through their glass masks. "Humans destroyed themselves. Even their bones have turned to dust." But the Zilari scientist Varen stared at the hologram of the signal with trembling claws. "No," he whispered. "This code, this is authentic. This is human." Across the stars, fleets began to move. Research teams, explorers, and scavengers all rushed toward the edge of the galaxy, to the cold region known as the Silent Veil, a place no one had dared to enter for 10,000 years. It was said to be cursed, filled with drifting wrecks of war and black energy storms that devoured light. Yet when they arrived, what they found silenced even the bravest captains. In the heart of that black region floated shapes, massive, ancient, and still. Giant ships, each larger than moons, their hulls covered in dust and scars of forgotten wars. No energy signatures, no movement, just waiting. The fleet of humanity. Thousands of vessels, sleek and terrifying in design. Some were shaped like wings of metal angels. Others looked like sleeping beasts curled in eternal rest. The symbols on their hulls were faded, stars, wings, and a single word that none of the aliens could translate, but all could feel. It meant power. It meant home. The explorers dared to go closer. The first probe sent near the fleet was destroyed by a sudden pulse, a wave of light that shot through the void. But it was not a weapon. It was a heartbeat. The ships were waking up. Panic spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Council called for emergency meetings. Entire systems went dark as governments tried to hide. Armies prepared for war. Ancient warnings from half-lost databases were whispered again. If humanity sleeps, let them sleep. If they rise, pray they still remember mercy. In the dark, one ship stirred before the others. It was the flagship, Sol's Wrath. Inside, machines hummed and lights flickered after an eternity of silence. Deep within its core, a figure opened his eyes. He was human. His body was wrapped in silver armor, his face pale as starlight, eyes burning with golden glow. For a moment, he simply breathed, as if remembering how to exist. Then, with a quiet whisper, he spoke. "Status of the fleet," an AI voice, soft and calm, answered. "All units in recovery phase. Estimated reactivation, 48 hours. Commander Arik, welcome back." Arik stepped forward, gazing at the void beyond the ship's viewport. The stars had changed. Entire constellations were gone, reshaped by time. "How long?" he asked quietly. 1,006 years since last recorded operation, the AI replied. Arik's eyes darkened. "Then they forgot us." "Yes," the AI said. "But they remember the fear." Outside, sensors detected dozens of alien ships surrounding the human fleet. Cautious, watching. The aliens sent messages begging for communication, for peace. But the fleet did not respond. They only waited. The silence itself felt heavier than war. And then, as the first human engines ignited, the galaxy trembled. Stars flickered, systems shook, and the energy fields of the old human ships roared to life, brighter and stronger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the council chambers, the delegates watched in horror as data streamed in. The ancient humans were not broken, not primitive. Their technology surpassed even the most advanced races by 1,000 generations. One alien whispered, "What will they do now?" And from the shadows of space, Commander Arik answered through the void, his voice echoing across the stars. "We built this galaxy once. We can do it again." The darkness itself seemed to bow before that voice. The humans had returned, and the galaxy trembled. The heartbeat of the human fleet grew stronger. One by one, the ancient ships came alive, engines rumbling like sleeping giants stretching after endless slumber. Dust scattered into space, and the frozen hulls began to glow faintly with the light of human technology. Warm, golden, and alive, inside Sol's wrath. Commander Arik stood in silence as the bridge flickered to life. Holograms rose from the floor, showing thousands of ships reconnecting, linking into one vast network. The air felt heavy with memory, as if the ship itself remembered everything that had ever happened. Arik took a slow breath. The taste of recycled air was sharp, sterile, but familiar. It reminded him of the wars long past, the wars humanity had fought before disappearing into the void. He could still hear the echoes of those battles, the screams, the fire, the silence that followed. "Fleet Command reports 87% operational," said the AI softly. "Damage minimal. Cryo-revival sequence in progress for all personnel." "How many souls?" Arik asked quietly. "Current awakening. 1.2 million humans. Estimated total 3 billion across all ships. 3 billion. After 1,000,000 years, that number was a miracle." Arik turned toward the viewport. Outside, he saw hundreds of alien ships, small and fragile compared to his fleet. They hovered at a cautious distance, curious, afraid, whispering across the stars. Their signals were easy to read. They were asking questions, pleading for peace, for understanding. Arik listened but said nothing. Humanity had learned long ago that words could be twisted, promises could be broken. Trust had been their downfall once. Not again. Still in his heart, something human stirred. Compassion. Memory. A faint ache for the galaxy they once called home. He placed a hand on the cold glass of the viewport and whispered, "What did you become without us?" The AI answered, "Records suggest the galaxy united under a council 500,000 years after humanity's departure. Multiple wars followed. Empires rose and fell. Peace was always temporary." Arik's expression hardened. "Then nothing has changed." He turned away, voice deep with quiet determination. "Send a message to the fleet. All captains, prepare for full system recovery. I want our archives synchronized. I want to know everything that happened while we slept. Yes, Commander." Far away in the central halls of the Galactic Council, panic was spreading. The delegates of dozens of races argued, shouted, and trembled before the image floating in the center of the chamber. The reactivated human fleet. "They are waking," cried the Zalari envoy. "The humans live again." "This cannot be," hissed a Thalkor. "It's a trick. Some remnant AI mimicking their form." But the Grand Speaker, an ancient creature made of light, said nothing. Its radiant body pulsed with slow, dreadful recognition. "The readings are clear," it said finally. "Their technology is impossible. Their ships generate more power than an entire system. The humans are real." A silence followed, a silence thick with fear. "They will bring war," muttered one voice. "They will bring order," said another. But none truly knew. Back within the human fleet, life was returning. Cryopods opened like blooming flowers. Men and women stepped out, confused and trembling. Some fell to their knees. Some wept, and others simply looked at the stars through the ship's glass walls, realizing what had happened, realizing how much time had passed. Arik walked among them, his silver armor shining dimly in the blue light. To them he was both leader and symbol, a remnant of a time when humanity had commanded the stars. He raised his voice, calm but powerful. "My brothers, my sisters, we have slept longer than any civilization in history. The galaxy we built has forgotten us. The stars we once named no longer remember our touch. He paused, his golden eyes glowing brighter. But we are still here. We endured when all others perished. We return not as conquerors, but as witnesses. The galaxy needs to remember what it means to be human. The crowd was silent, listening, trembling, believing. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, the word human echoed again through the cold halls of space. Moments later, the first alien envoy dared to approach. A small, fragile vessel drifted toward Saul's wrath, its lights blinking in cautious rhythm. A message followed. Unknown fleet, identify yourselves. We come in peace. The council wishes to communicate. Arik stared at the message for a long time. His jaw tightened. Peace, he murmured. That's what they said before the fall. Commander? The AI asked gently. Open a channel, he ordered. A hologram flickered to life, a nervous alien with soft blue skin and 4 trembling eyes. We thought you were gone, the alien stammered. Are you truly human? Arik looked straight into its eyes, his expression unreadable. We are what remains, he said softly. And what's left is enough. The alien swallowed hard, sensing something vast behind that calm voice. A power older than stars. A sadness deeper than time. As the transmission ended, Arik turned back to the stars. Begin fleet formation, he said. We go home. And as the golden light of humanity's engines ignited, the galaxy once again felt that old, unforgettable truth. The humans had awakened. And they were moving. The Galactic Council had not known fear for centuries, but now, as the holograms of the ancient human fleet filled the great chamber, every voice trembled. Every delegate from the insectoid Varnix to the glowing Seraphim could feel it. The cold weight of something older, stronger, and far beyond their understanding. The massive circular hall buzzed with noise. Dozens of alien races shouted over one another. Some demanded peace, others screamed for war. The air shimmered with tension and confusion. Their energy readings break all known laws of physics, shouted the Varnix general, slamming his claw on the table. They cannot be allowed to move freely. They claim to be our ancestors, hissed another delegate. Maybe we should welcome them. But the Grand Speaker, the being of light who had led the council for 1,000 years, spoke softly, and the room went silent. We stand upon the edge of history, it said. The humans have returned, and with them, judgment. Far beyond the council world in the endless dark of the galaxy, the human fleet moved like a silent storm. The ships glided with perfect formation, golden lights cutting through the void. No signals, no radio chatter. Only calm, precise motion. Commander Arik watched from the bridge of Saul's wrath. Around him, officers monitored countless data streams. The fleet systems were fully restored, its engines stronger than ever. Status? Arik asked quietly. All ships synchronized. Fleet operational at 98%. The nearest council world is 2 light days away, replied a young officer, her voice steady but eyes wide with awe. Arik nodded. Good, maintain distance. No engagement unless provoked. He knew the council was afraid. He could feel their eyes on him. Thousands of scanners, satellites, and probes trying to read every move. But humanity had learned patience. After all, they had waited 1,000,000 years. Still, within him burned an ache, a memory of the past. He remembered the day the old human empire fell, the betrayal, the silence that followed, the endless night. He whispered to himself. We trusted them once. We gave them fire and they burned us for it. The ship's AI responded softly. Do you believe they are the same? Arik's eyes stayed on the stars. Time doesn't change fear. Only hides it. On the council world, chaos grew. Fleets were being built. Old warships, long unused, were dragged from orbit and rearmed. Commanders gave speeches about protection, safety, defense. But behind every word was terror. The council knew that if the humans attacked, no wall, no weapon, no shield could stop them. The oldest records said that human warships had ended empires in days, and those records spoke of the younger human fleet. What now, after a million years of silence and evolution? Varen, the Zalari scientist who had first identified the signal, sat alone in his laboratory. His claws trembled over the holoscreen showing the human fleet's path. He was not afraid of them. He was afraid of what the galaxy might do to them. They don't understand, he whispered to himself. The humans are not here to destroy. They are here to remember. He sent message after message to the Council, warning them to stay calm, to open communication, but his messages were ignored. Meanwhile, in Sol's wrath, Arik stood before a wall of holograms showing the history of the galaxy, empires that rose and fell, wars that came and went. Each was built on the ashes of the last. He saw no peace, no unity, only cycles of power and fear. So much had changed, and yet so little. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Commander, the Council has sent a broadcast. Shall we play it? Play it, Arik said. The hologram shimmered to life. The Grand Speaker appeared, a tall being made of pure light. Humans, it said, its tone trembling. You are not forgotten, but the galaxy has moved on. Your time has passed. We ask you, return to your silence. Let us live without war. Arik listened quietly, then said, Mute it. The bridge went silent again. He closed his eyes. The words of the alien leader echoed in his mind. Your time has passed. He turned toward his officers. Our time never ended, he said softly. It was only paused. Back on the Council world, panic deepened. Reports came in from frontier stations. Human ships seen near dead systems, scanning old ruins, collecting relics of their past. No shots fired, no threats made. Just silence and purpose, but fear twisted every story. Humans are preparing for invasion, screamed one report. They're building something massive, claimed another. The Council gathered its fleets, millions of ships standing ready. But even their commanders knew deep inside that it wouldn't matter. The galaxy trembled not because of what humans had done, but because of what they could still do. And far in the dark, aboard Sol's Wrath, Arik looked out at the endless stars, once their home, now filled with stranger, and said, almost to himself, we are not here to conquer. We are here to remember who we were, and remind the galaxy who we are. The stars reflected in his golden eyes like tears, and for the first time in a million years, the universe held its breath. The humans had returned to the galaxy, but they spoke to no one. Their fleet moved through the void like a ghostly storm, silent, calm, unstoppable. Wherever they passed, alien fleets pulled back, terrified of what might happen if they came too close, yet not everyone wished to run. On a small frontier world named Elindra, a research colony watched the approaching human ships. Among them was Varen, the Zalari scientist who had first decoded the ancient human signal. He had begged the Galactic Council not to attack, not to provoke them. When no one listened, he took matters into his own hands. I have to see them, he told his assistant. I have to understand why they came back. His assistant's antennae trembled. If they see us, they might destroy us. Or they might remember us, Varen whispered. He entered his ship, a small exploration vessel, and launched toward the silent fleet. His heart pounded as the human ships grew larger in his viewport. Their hulls shimmered with strange patterns of golden energy. They looked alive as if they breathed. When he came close enough, his sensors failed. His instruments went dark. The only light came from the massive ship ahead, the flagship, Sol's Wrath. He sent a message through the ancient human code he had studied for years. To the children of Earth, we come in peace. For a long, endless moment there was no reply. Then, his ship's systems flickered. A voice deep and calm filled the cabin. Identify yourself, Varen froze. The voice was human, powerful, resonant, carrying something more than authority. It carried age, memory, sorrow. I am Varen of the Zalari, he said softly. I am not a soldier. I am a historian. I only wish to speak. Another pause. Then the voice returned, quieter now. Approach. Inside Sol's Wrath, Commander Arik stood on the bridge as the tiny alien ship approached. His officers watched nervously, ready to defend. "Commander, the ship is unarmed," said one of them. "Its pilot has no escort. His transmission is genuine," Arik nodded. "Let him in." The alien craft was guided into one of the docking bays. As the airlock sealed and the doors opened, Varen stepped out, his small, thin body trembling slightly under the heavy light of the ship's interior. Humans, tall and strong, surrounded him, their armor glowing faintly with gold light. They said nothing. Then Arik appeared. He walked forward slowly, every step echoing through the silent bay. His golden eyes fixed on the fragile creature before him. To Varen it felt like standing before a living storm. "You are the first to stand before us without fear," Arik said. Varen bowed his head slightly. "I have fear," he admitted softly. "But curiosity is stronger." Arik studied him for a long moment, then motioned for him to follow. "Come. You wish to speak, and then speak." They entered the observation chamber. Beyond the glass walls the stars stretched endlessly, and thousands of human ships floated like silver angels in the dark. Varen's voice shook with emotion. "We thought you were gone forever. The galaxy grew without you, but we still told stories. Stories about the humans who reached for the stars, who built wonders no one could match." Arik's gaze remained on the stars. "And what do those stories say now?" "They say you destroyed yourselves." For the first time, a flicker of pain crossed Arik's face. "Perhaps we did," he said quietly. "We wanted too much. We burned too bright. When the galaxy turned on us, we turned on ourselves. We went into the dark so that no one else would suffer." Varen stepped closer. "Then why return?" Arik's eyes glowed brighter. "Because the galaxy forgot the lesson. They still fight. They still build empires on fear and greed. We came back to see if there was still hope." Varen looked at him, at the sorrow and strength in his eyes, and for the first time, he did not see a monster. He saw a man, a survivor. Far away, the Galactic Council watched the transmission with horror. "How dare he meet with them?" cried a delegate. "He'll bring them down on us all." "Send the fleet," ordered another. "If they will not leave, we will make them." Armadas began to move, millions of ships armed and ready, but in Sol's Wrath, Arik already knew. "They are coming," the AI whispered. He closed his eyes. "Of course they are. Fear always comes before reason." Varen looked desperate. "You must not fight them. If you strike, they will never understand what you truly are." Arik turned toward him, calm but resolute. "If they force our hand, we will defend ourselves. But not to conquer, and only to remind. Remind them of what?" Arik placed a hand on the glass, watching the stars. "That we are human, and we do not kneel to fear." Outside, the human fleet began to shift formation, golden wings unfolding, energy gathering like dawn rising after endless night. In the heart of the void, a meeting had taken place, between the past and the present, between the myth and the living truth. And as the first light of the human fleet spread across the darkness, every corner of the galaxy turned its eyes to them, trembling, for the first contact had been made, and the universe would never be the same again. The stars had grown restless. For weeks, the human fleet remained silent, anchored near the edge of the galaxy, surrounded by fear. Every empire watched, every government waited, and every soldier whispered the same question: would the humans strike first? But the humans did not move. They observed. They listened. They rebuilt fragments of what once was theirs. Then came the spark, a nervous fleet from the Thalkor Empire, desperate to prove its strength to the Council, entered the restricted zone around the human ships. Their commanders believed they could scare the ancient ghosts back into the dark. They were wrong. The first missile fired was small, a warning shot. It struck the hull of Sol's Wrath, barely leaving a mark. The human shields didn't even flicker, but that single act shattered the fragile silence of the galaxy. Alarms rang across the human fleet. Lights shifted from calm gold to sharp crimson. Inside the massive ships, systems awakened that had not been used in a million years. Commander Arik stood on the bridge, calm but cold. Around him, officers waited for his order. "Damage?" he asked quietly. "None, Commander," replied his AI. "Their weapons are primitive. Shall we respond?" For a long moment, Arik said nothing. His golden eyes stared at the hologram showing the Thalkor fleet, hundreds of ships trembling before giants. "No," he said at last. "We don't destroy the frightened. We show them mercy." But mercy was not enough to stop chaos. The Council, believing war had begun, ordered full mobilization. Thousands of fleets moved, lighting the galaxy with the glow of engines and weapons. Every species prepared for the storm they had always feared, the return of the human wrath. In the council chambers, voices screamed over one another. "They fired first. We had no choice," shouted one. "The humans will destroy everything," cried another. "Then we must strike before they do." And just like that, fear won. Millions of ships launched toward the human fleet, their commanders driven not by courage but by panic. The galaxy, once united in its fear, was now burning with it. Back on Sol's Wrath, Varen watched in disbelief as the Council's fleets approached. "You have to talk to them," he begged Arik. "You can stop this before it begins." Arik shook his head slowly. "They will not listen. Fear makes minds deaf. Then leave. Escape before they destroy you." A faint, sad smile crossed Arik's face. "We do not run. Not anymore." He turned to his officers. "Activate the peace protocols." A deep hum filled the ship. Across the entire human fleet, golden shields expanded, not as weapons but as barriers of light. A vast wave of energy spread out, covering entire regions of space. Every approaching missile, every laser beam dissolved into harmless sparks the moment it touched the human light. The alien fleets fired again and again, but nothing could break through. Their weapons might as well have been dust against stars. Then the human fleet answered, not with fire, but with voice. A transmission echoed through every ship, every world, every being in the galaxy. It was Arik's voice, calm, deep, unshaken. "You attack out of fear, but we remember mercy. We are not your enemy. We came not to conquer, but to see what became of our home." The words reached even the darkest corners of space. Some commanders hesitated. Some stopped firing. Others, too afraid to believe, continued to fight. The battle became chaos, not of destruction, but of confusion. Ships drifted, unsure whether to attack or flee. The humans remained still, their golden shields glowing softly like the light of a sunrise over a battlefield. Inside the council chambers, silence fell. The delegates watched as their fleets failed to harm the humans. Their greatest weapons powerless, their proudest ships useless. "They could have wiped us out," whispered the Grand Speaker. "But they didn't." "They're showing restraint," said another. "Why?" Varen's message arrived moments later, his voice filled with emotion. "Because they remember what we have forgotten. Humanity was never just power. They were will, compassion, balance. They endured what no other race could." In the deep of space, Commander Arik closed his eyes. He could feel the pulse of the old human spirit through the fleet. Billions of hearts awakening after endless sleep. Not for vengeance, but for meaning. He whispered to himself, "We are not gods. We are just what happens when hope refuses to die." Then his sensors flashed red. One of the alien commanders, desperate and terrified, had launched a doomsday weapon. A star-splitting missile aimed directly at the human flagship. Varen gasped. "Arik, it's heading for us." But Arik did not move. His voice remained calm. "Hold the line, the missile hit." A blinding explosion swallowed the darkness. For a moment the stars disappeared. The galaxy waited, silent. Then, the light cleared. Sol's Wrath was still there, untouched. Around it, The human fleet shimmered brighter than ever before, their shields absorbing the force like sunlight through glass. Arik looked at the destruction fading in the distance and whispered, "They still don't understand." The humans had not fought back, but their power, their calm defiance, spoke louder than any weapon ever could. Across the galaxy, soldiers lowered their weapons. Commanders hesitated. For the first time, they realized that the humans were not here to destroy. They were here to teach. And somewhere in the quiet after the chaos, the galaxy began to feel something it had not felt in millennia: shame. After the failed attack, the galaxy fell silent. No one dared to move. No one dared to speak. The sight of the ancient human fleet, untouched by all the firepower the galaxy could summon, hung in the minds of every living being. The humans had not struck back, and they had simply endured. That endurance, that quiet strength, frightened the galaxy more than any weapon could. Commander Arik stood at the center of Sol's wrath, watching the aftermath. Pieces of destroyed ships floated like broken feathers among the stars. The light of dying engines flickered in the distance. And still his fleet remained untouched, their golden glow soft and steady, almost gentle. "They don't understand us," he said softly. Baron, standing beside him, lowered his gaze. "They fear what they don't remember. To them you are myths come alive." Arik's eyes, bright as molten gold, turned toward the alien. "Then let's remind them of what it meant to be human." For the next few days, the humans began their work. Across dozens of systems, they deployed vast satellites and transmitters, not weapons, but archives. Each one pulsed with golden light, sending streams of ancient data across the galaxy. The languages of the long-dead human worlds filled the void once again. Every race received the same message: we are humanity. We built, we dreamed, we fell, and we rose again. We remember. Holograms began to appear on alien worlds. Scenes from human history. Children playing on green fields. Oceans filled with light. Cities shining under twin suns. Soldiers standing not as conquerors but as protectors. Scientists curing plagues, explorers crossing the void, artists painting hope on walls of steel. For the first time, the galaxy saw the truth of humanity, not as monsters of legend, but as beings who had loved, created, and sacrificed. On distant planets, people gathered around the glowing images, eyes wide, hearts stirred. They saw humans laughing, crying, building together. They saw beauty. They saw pain. They saw something that felt achingly familiar, because it was everything the galaxy had forgotten. In the council chamber, the delegates watched in silence. No arguments. No shouting. Just quiet awe. "They remember everything," whispered the grand speaker. "Their history, their suffering, their kindness." Varen's recorded message appeared beside the holograms. His voice was calm, trembling with emotion. "They are not here to rule us. They are here to remind us what we lost. The unity that once held meaning, the courage to dream." Humanity was never just power. It was heart. The room remained still. For the first time in ages, no one spoke of war. Back on Sol's wrath, Arik walked through the ancient memory halls. Vast corridors lined with crystalline panels, each one holding fragments of humanity's past. He paused before one, an image of Earth, blue, bright, alive, home. He touched the glass gently, his voice soft. "Do you still exist?" The AI answered quietly. "Scans show remnants of your world. It was scarred by war, then abandoned. But life has returned. Oceans still flow." Arik smiled faintly. Then it endured too. He stood there for a long time, silent. Around him, other humans began to awaken. Soldiers, engineers, scholars, all seeing the galaxy they once shaped, now changed beyond recognition. Some wept. Some stood proud, and together they made a decision. Humanity would not rule again. They would guide. Soon, human ships began landing on neutral worlds. They offered technology freely, healed planets scarred by centuries of war and repaired failing suns. They rebuilt without asking for tribute or control. Everywhere they went, the same message followed. We are not your masters. We are your mirror. Look and remember. Children of other species began learning old human songs. Songs about hope, courage, and dreams. Artists began painting humans as symbols of endurance. Something began to shift across the galaxy. Empires paused their wars. Borders opened. The long age of fear began to fade, but not everyone welcomed it. Hidden deep within the shadows of space, a small group of council leaders met in secret. They are too powerful, hissed one. They could destroy us any time they wish. Another replied, then we must strike when they are least expecting it. Fear was not gone. It had only gone quiet. Back aboard Sol's Wrath, Arik stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars where the human light now shone once more. Farron stood beside him, his expression filled with awe and sadness. You gave them hope, Farron said. Arik shook his head. We only reminded them that it still exists. He turned toward his officers. Begin preparations. We'll head toward the Sol system. Home? Arik nodded slowly. It's time to see what became of the cradle. The crew stood silently, hearts heavy with emotion. For 1,000,000 years they had wandered in the dark. Now at last they would return to where it all began. Outside the ship, the fleet began to move again, their light spreading across the stars like the dawn of a new age. And somewhere far away, the ruins of Earth stirred under the touch of sunlight, waiting for the return of her lost children. The ancient human fleet sailed through the silent void, their golden light gliding over sleeping stars. The long journey home had begun. After 1,000,000 years of exile, they were returning to the world that had given birth to them, to Earth. Inside Sol's Wrath, Commander Arik stood before the great observation window. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, glowing softly like memories trying to return. The hum of the ship was calm now, peaceful. For the first time since their awakening, there was no tension, only quiet anticipation. Beren, the alien who had stood by their side since the beginning, watched him silently. Are you ready to see your home again? He asked softly. Arik's voice was low, filled with something between fear and hope. I don't know what we'll find, but I need to see it. We all do. Days passed. The fleet crossed empty systems where no life remained, only dust and silence. They saw broken stations, dead moons, and lonely comets wandering without purpose. Yet as they came closer to the Sol system, strange signals began to appear. Soft radio whispers buried deep in static. At first the humans thought they were echoes, remnants of their old broadcasts. But soon the signals became clearer. Patterns, voices, music, impossible, whispered one of the officers. There's still sound coming from Earth? The AI of Sol's Wrath confirmed it. Yes, weak transmissions detected. Origin, Terra. For a moment no one moved. Even Arik froze, his breath caught in his chest. The thought that Earth was not entirely silent brought tears to his eyes. Prepare descent, he ordered quietly. Let's go home. When they entered the solar system, the crew fell completely silent. They saw the sun, older, dimmer, but still burning with golden light. They saw Mars wrapped in green, and life had returned to it. They saw Jupiter's moon sparkling like jewels, and then they saw Earth. It was breathtaking. The planet was not dead. It was alive. Oceans glimmered in the light. Forests spread over the continents. The scars of old wars had been covered by nature's healing hand. Humanity's ruins had become part of the land, ancient cities overgrown with trees and flowers. Arik stared at the blue sphere, tears streaming down his face. After everything, she still lives, Farron whispered. Your world waited for you. The fleet entered orbit. Massive ships, silent for ages, now cast their gentle light over Earth's clouds. From space, they looked like guardian angels returning from a long night. They sent down small drones to explore. What they found astonished everyone. Human life had changed, but it had survived. On the surface, descendants of the old humanity lived in harmony with the planet. They wore simple clothes, spoke in a language evolved from ancient tongues, and built homes from stone and metal. They were peaceful, unaware of the vast empire their ancestors once ruled. They looked up at the glowing ships in the sky, eyes wide with wonder. To them, the returning fleet must have seemed like gods from the stars, but Auric did not want to be a god. He landed on Earth with a small group, his boots touching the soil of his home world for the first time in a million years. The air was warm. The wind carried the scent of trees and salt water. He knelt down and pressed his hand to the ground, his voice trembling. "This is home," he whispered. A small crowd gathered nearby, men, women, and children of the new Earth. They stared in silence, unsure whether to approach. One little girl, her hair the color of sunlight, walked forward holding a flower. She offered it to Auric with a shy smile. He accepted it, smiling softly. "Thank you," he said. She didn't understand his words, but she understood his tone, and she smiled wider. It was a small moment, but it broke the walls of time. That night, the humans of the stars and the humans of Earth sat together by fires under the same sky. They shared food, stories, and songs. The old ones listened to the new, and for the first time in a million years, laughter echoed across the land. Baron watched it all with awe. "You see," he said quietly to Auric, "you didn't just survive. You became eternal." Auric looked at the stars above, at the countless ships still shining in orbit, and then back at the smiling faces around him. "No," he said softly. "We simply remembered who we are." The next morning, the human fleet sent one final transmission to the galaxy. It was simple, carried on every frequency, every language: "We have returned home. The galaxy need not fear. Humanity is not a conqueror of world. We are keepers of hope. Wherever darkness rises, we will stand as light." And with that, the million-year-old fleet settled around Earth, not as warships, but as guardians of peace. Their golden glow bathed the planet like a sunrise that would never fade. The galaxy watched in silence, not with fear this time, but with reverence. The legend of humanity was no longer about power or destruction. It was about love, endurance, and the endless will to begin again. On a quiet hill overlooking the sea, Auric stood one last time beneath the old stars. The little girl ran to him, laughing, her flower still blooming in her hand. He smiled and whispered, "You are the future." The wind carried his words far into the night, across the waves, across the sky, across the galaxy that now trembled not from fear, but from hope.